Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakahakudash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in Jeremiah chapter 50 verse 12. Your mother shall be sore confounded. She that bare you shall be ashamed. Behold, the hindermost of the nations shall be a wilderness, a dry land, and a desert. And that hindermost of the nations is speaking of the United States of America, which is biblically known as Babylon the Great, as well as spiritual Sodom and Egypt as pursuant to Revelation 11 verse 8. And her mother that shall be sore confounded and ashamed of her is speaking of Great Britain, which the United States of America came out of, beginning with the 13 colonies. Verse 13, because of the wrath of Yahweh, it shall not be inhabited, but it shall be wholly desolate. Everyone that goeth by Babylon, the United States of America, shall be astonished and hiss at all her plagues. And what's going to make Babylon a wilderness, a dry land, and a desert is 200 million nuclear missiles that's going to hit this place. The reason being, as it says, is because it's the wrath of Yahweh. The Most High is going to punish this place with those nuclear missiles for all the wickedness you Edomites, or so-called white people in America, have been committing on this entire planet, but chiefly because you've afflicted the apple of the Most High's eye, the true children of Israel, who are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And your mother, Great Britain, is going to be one of the nations that's going to shoot nuclear missiles onto you. Verse 14, put yourselves in array against Babylon round about. All ye that bend the bow, shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she hath sinned against Yahweh. And those bows and arrows are symbolic for the nuclear missiles, because what you have to remember is that when the prophets saw these visions thousands of years ago, they didn't know what a modern day nuclear missile was, so they described it the best way they could with what they knew during their times, ancient weapons of war, like bows and arrows, spears, javelins, swords, flying swords, etc., etc. Like I just said, America's own mother, Great Britain, is going to be one of the nations that's going to put herself in array against her round about and shoot nuclear missiles onto her. And it's not just going to be Great Britain, but it's going to be America's other allies like France, Germany, and these other nuclear-capable NATO nations, as well as America's enemies, Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. All these nations are actually going to cleave unto Russia to shoot those nuclear missiles on to Babylon the Great, the United States of America. Russia's going to be the one leading the charge, as it says down in verse 41. Behold, a people shall come from the north country, up in Jeremiah 50 verse 9, Russia, because what's north of the United States of America? You've got Canada, the Arctic Ocean region, and then Russia. And it's a well-known fact that Russia shooting nuclear missiles from itself across the Arctic Ocean region to hit its targets in the United States of America would be the shortest trajectory time for its missiles to reach the U.S. And also, if you've been paying attention to the news, Russia has been building up its military assets in that Arctic Ocean region, because it's also going to shoot nuclear missiles from there as well onto the United States. And a great nation, and many kings shall be raised up from the coasts of the earth, from the ends of the earth. Many kings, many nations, gathering themselves round about against Babylon, not only her enemies like that north country Russia, and then China, Iran, and North Korea, but also her allies, her mother, Great Britain, France, Germany, and these other NATO nations that are going to turn against her. They shall hold the bow and the lance, referring to those nuclear missiles. They are cruel and will not shew mercy. Their voice shall roar like the sea, and they shall ride upon horses, every one put in array, like a man to the battle against thee, O daughter of Babylon. And when you go to Psalms 137, start at about verse 7 and read on down, you'll see that the nation of Esau Edom is synonymous with being the daughter of Babylon. And after those 200 million nuclear missiles hit this place, it's going to turn it into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea, and then a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland afterwards, as it says up in verse 40. As the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, and how did the Most High overthrow ancient Sodom and Gomorrah? With fire and brimstone from the sky. And like I said earlier, besides being known as Babylon the Great and the daughter of Babylon in the scriptures, the United States of America is also known as spiritual Sodom and Egypt, as pursuant to Revelation 11 verse 8. The Most High is going to overthrow this modern day Sodom and Gomorrah with modern fire and brimstone from the sky, those 200 million nuclear missiles, and the neighbor cities thereof, saith Yahweh. So shall no man abide there, neither shall any son of man dwell therein. After the dust settles, no man, woman, or child will ever set foot on the former United States of America ever again, and after a time only desert creatures will dwell here. Therefore, the wild beasts of the desert with the wild beasts of the islands shall dwell there, and the owls shall dwell therein, and it shall no more be inhabited forever, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. And in that day, the only thing the United States of America is going to stand as is an eternal memorial as to what a wicked kingdom looked like, how not to govern the earth, and what the judgment and punishment was for afflicting the apple of the Most High's eye, the children of Israel, who are again the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And I opened up this video with these verses to preface a clip from RT's YouTube channel titled UK-US Relations Dealt a Blow as Biden Refuses to Extend Evacuation, to show that Babylon the Great, the United States of America's mother, Britain, is sore confounded and ashamed of her over Biden's sloppy evacuation from Afghanistan. And this is another chip in the wall to that so-called special relationship between the United States of America and Great Britain. And as pursuant to Jeremiah chapter 50, what it's ultimately going to culminate in is America's mother, Great Britain, turning against her and allying herself with that North country, Russia, to altogether shoot those 200 million nuclear missiles onto her.
Well, the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan's put the US at odds with some of its allies. Joe Biden has rejected calls coming from the UK and other European countries for the evacuation to be extended beyond the 31st of August deadline. But the UK Foreign Secretary insists that the so-called special relationship with Washington does remain strong.
Looking at events yesterday in the G7 summit, is the special relationship over, Foreign Secretary?
No, of course it isn't. It matters a huge amount.
Okay, let's cross live to London now. Our correspondent now is Kate Partridge. Kate, good afternoon. Britain apparently has failed to persuade America to extend that evacuation deadline. Where does that leave the transatlantic relationship?
Well, as we heard, UK Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab says Britain's failure to persuade the US to extend the evacuation from Afghanistan doesn't mean the special relationship is over, but it has left a bitter taste in the mouth, and Joe Biden has been harshly criticised. The US president says staying longer in Kabul would raise the risk of an attack by Islamic State and strain a tenuous working relationship with the Taliban. But a former UK commander says the terrorist threat now coming from Afghanistan is worse than before 9/11, and Biden should face a military court.
I don't believe President Biden should be impeached. He's the commander-in-chief of the US Armed Forces, who's just essentially surrendered to the Taliban. He shouldn't be impeached. He should be court-martialed for betraying the United States of America and the United States Armed Forces.
Pretty harsh words from a former higher-up in a government to a country that's the United States of America's top ally. Back in Jeremiah 50, verse 12. Your mother shall be sore confounded, She that bare you shall be ashamed of Joe Biden's handling of the Afghanistan evacuation. He shouldn't be impeached. He should be court-martialed for betraying the United States of America and the United States of America's armed forces.
Well, Biden's also being condemned by MPs in Parliament, some calling his criticism of the Afghan army shameful. MP Tobias Ellwood, who served in Afghanistan, says the special relationship is not what it was and asks why Britain didn't stand up to the US. But the harshest criticism of Biden has come from former Prime Minister Tony Blair, who took Britain into Afghanistan 2 decades ago.
It is so obvious the decision to withdraw from Afghanistan in this way was driven not by grand strategy but by politics. We did it in obedience to an imbecilic political slogan about ending the forever wars, as if our engagement in 2021 was remotely comparable to our commitment 20 or even 10 years ago.
Well, it was British Prime Minister Winston Churchill who first used the term special relationship in 1946, and it was popular when Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan were in power. But the withdrawal from Afghanistan has exposed the fact it's an unequal relationship, and when the US says it's leaving, its allies must follow. And in a post-Brexit world where trade deals are key, the British might protest, but ultimately need to keep their closest ally on side.
Bringing us all the latest there live from London, and that's our correspondent Kate Partridge.
And while this may not seem like a earth-shattering relationship-breaking situation, it's just another seed that the Most High is planting to further divide that special relationship between Great Britain and the United States of America, to bring it to the point to where Great Britain will turn against the U.S. during World War III and again ally themselves with that North country, Russia, to shoot those 200 million nuclear missiles onto her. I'm going to close it out in Revelation chapter 17, verse 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, the 10 horns referring to the European Union, beginning back when it was known as the European Economic Community, which the UK was a part of, and the beast being NATO. And while Britain has left the European Union with Brexit, it's still a part of NATO. These shall hate the whore, the United States of America, Babylon the Great, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire, nuclear fire from those nuclear missiles. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim are edified. Just keep strong and keep pushing this word. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.